the entire door bottom or just get a new door bottom seal?
Well, neither. The first thing to do is to figure out why that happened. Based on the image, you have substantial damage to the unit. You can see that the drop bar is severely bent. What my guess is that the way that it was installed and then adjusted for drop was severely greater than the clearance dimension permitted. So when you close the door, you're pushing it down so much that you're trying to push, let's say, a ½ inch of material down when you only have 3/16 of space to push it down into. And when that door is closed, the push bar, the spring is under tension, forcing the drop bar to push. As soon as you start to open the door, immediately you want the tension on that spring to be lessened and then to eventually become zero, but really quickly so that it snaps up back in place. Something tells me, based on the damage, is that the door is being opened, but it's really still under that spring is still under a lot of tension. So my guess is that it's just far overly set, and as a result of the drop bar being bent, it needs to be replaced. Or perhaps the person can just put it all back, straighten that bar out, put it all back together, readjust it, and test. Now, why is it so severely pushed down? Probably because you're noticing that you do not have a consistent gap along the entire bottom of the door. Specifically, my guess would be is that you have a smaller gap on the hinge side than you do on the lock side. So someone's trying to get that lock side to drop down and seal because you have probably an unlevel floor or a door that's not square at the bottom. I don't think that's necessary because it appears from your pictures that the door's been routed such that it fits. You certainly want to leave the door hanging, and you want to measure the distance from the bottom of the door to the top of whatever is there on the hinge side. Measure that on the lock side. And then if that dimension is not the same and it's greater on the lock side, that is certainly the problem.
So what would be the difference in drop, the maximum difference in drop from the hinge side to the lock side? Is there like a 1/16 or a 3/16 that I should be looking for? What are we talking about in terms of difference? Because I'll be the one measuring that before I even call them back.
That door bottom would have very little tolerance for that to be out in terms of it being different as measured on either side. Only the amount that you could marginally compress the neoprene is all that it would tolerate. It would be a very, very small dimension. A 16th, a really small dimension.
So a 16th of an inch really from the hinge side to the lock side.
Yeah.
That would be the least or the most amount of tolerance that the door could be out in terms of vertical height from one end to the other.
In terms of clearance dimension, the gap between
that I sent you, you could actually see a gouging in the threshold, the wood. What is that called? The wood, the adjustable wood threshold. You can actually see some gouging from the metal that's bent on the door bottom. So I don't know what that tells me. I guess that tells me that the hinge is going way too far down on that side, and that's why it's ending up gouging that door. I'm not really sure if that's what that's telling me.
I think that is what it's telling you. And when you look at the image that you are referring to, take that bolt and turn it clockwise, draw it way back into the housing. Don't let it stick out so far.
Right.
Turn it in half of its distance for sure. Then close the door and get down on the floor and press your head against the floor and study the contact of the drop bar with the threshold.
Right. Could I, at this point in time, if I cut that piece out, you're asking me to cut the piece that is hanging, right? That's what you said to me?
Well, I would, if there's that much of it's torn, I would just cut that part off, and then let's say you're left with 30-inch. You can use that to test whether or not you're going to be able to make this work, but you're going to need to correct the bent drop bar first.
Right.
So and that may not be easy to straighten that out, given the fact that it's not solid within the housing. Plus, if you try to bend that aluminum, you may damage the entire unit. But you can use what you have there to determine whether or not problem solved, meaning the bolt was just set out too far, and that you then order a replacement and then simply install it yourself.
Adjustable wood bottom. To me that seems like a big gap, but I don't know if that would be right. It's about 0.35 inches.
No.
Doesn't that seem like a rather big gap, a third of an inch?
No, sir. No, 3/8 is a healthy, normal gap.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I wouldn't know that. So, what you said to me earlier was basically push the adjusting screw all the way into the door itself, right? As much as I can, right?
No, I said reduce its projection by half. Draw it in substantially closer, like let it hang out a 1/4 inch, no more than that, and then test and observe the drop. And if you need more, then you turn it counterclockwise.
Take it out. Right.
Yeah.
This door bottom, this adjustable wood bottom.
Yeah, the gouging is a result of that bar being crushed down, the bent bar being so crushed down.
Yep.
When you alleviate the plunger hanging out of the edge of the door, that won't drop so far. So obviously the aluminum would never come in contact with the post itself. Yeah.
You know, one thing that they did was, I'm sorry?
Install that screw so it's flush with the jamb and then never change it again. All adjustments are done on the bolt sticking out of the edge of the door. It did not escape my notice that screw did not look flush, but I've never had anybody try to
plate to adjust the door bottom. They were adjusting the screw.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and turn that all the way in, and then I'll play with the adjusting screw on the door bottom.